Okay, I'll call the meeting of Duncannon Borough Council for Tuesday, March 20th, 2018 to order. If we could please rise for a moment of silence and pledge allegiance. Tyler, if you'll lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, roll call of officers.
Mr. Adams.
Here.
Mr. Crothermel.
Here.
Mr. Kirkhoff.
Here.
Ms. Landis.
Here.
Mr. May.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Young.
Here.
Mayor Capuana.
Here.
Solicitor Dissinger.
Here.
Engineer Rogowski.
Here.
Elizabeth, Miss Meisner. I know Sophia's not here because she is sick.
Very good, thank you. I'd like to remind everyone, for any electronic devices, to please put them on silent or vibrate that only you can hear, or off. I would like to announce that an executive session was held on March 1st to discuss personnel matters. We'll now move on to the review of the February 20th, 2018 meeting minutes.
I have one thing I would like to add, in the very first line after appointments, correspondence, resignation. We should say rental agreement with the Perry County Election Board.
The only thing I saw was others present, borough manager, there's too many dashes.
Oh, yeah, there are. Okay,
And I couldn't figure out which one was the one that needed to go, but,
the first one.
okay. Any other changes?
Motion to accept the meeting minutes as
Second.
corrected.
Motion by Mr. Croswell, second by Ms. Landis to approve the corrections and minutes for February 20th, 2018 council meeting minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. I would just like to remind everyone that you have 3 minutes per speaker, and we ask that you state your name and your address. John Guinera wishes to speak. Mr.
Yes,
Guinera.
I'm John Guinera. I live at 323 Market Street, the borough. I came in on the 5th of March to pay my electric bill and had been told by a neighbor that they were informed that the bill for that period that was showing on the bill as December 29th through 1/31 actually was an extended billing period because of just some plowing issues and whatever, that it was longer than the normal period that you would normally be billing for. So I asked about that and asked whether any adjustment, well, first off I asked where it shows on the bill the period that was being billed. And though it shows a from to date, it is the same every month. It's always from the end of the month to the end of the following month. So it apparently doesn't appear the period of time that you're actually billing for, which is hard for a person to know then whether you're billing for something longer or not. So the important part of that was that you charge a fee that is cost adjustment, and I asked how that was calculated because it varies from month to month. And I was told that the PUC calculates it. And I asked who at the PUC, and I was told I would just have to call the PUC. It appears that every time I come for any help from the borough, I seem to get less than what I would consider reasonable customer service. There's been a clear indication pretty much since I think the borough manager that's in place. We've seen one thing after the other where, you know, the first to me is that you change from allowing to pay with cash, so that now it costs a customer more to pay their bill. Now, when I calculated this, my own bill, if indeed it's not calculated correctly over that period of time, just the difference in the few days that it might be is $8 a day on my bill. So I'd like an explanation how you calculate it, and what days were billed, and whether or not the PUC was aware that you were billing for other than the 30 days that you show on the bill. So, can I be supplied with that information, please?
You can, but not this evening.
Appreciate
We
that.
will, I know there's a document up front that has the complete explanation of the cost adjustment, that how that is calculated and where all of that information comes from. But yes, we'll get you the information.
Are your employees aware that that is there?
I can't speak to that. I know it's there, it's put out publicly for everyone that's in the clear containers up front.
Right, so when a person comes in and asks a question, and the secretary of the borough handles it by not telling me that, but telling me that I can call the PUC, that's not the way I would expect it. The gentleman that was here as well, and he's not here tonight, I don't know his name, but I guess you're a finance person, also didn't have an explanation. There's two people who I would think, just as you know, should be able to direct a customer to turn around and look at the sheet. And quite frankly, if it's the PUC who's calculating it, be able to provide who at the PUC does it.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Absolutely.
No one else indicated a desire to speak.
I'm sorry, is there a time when I should expect to hear back from you?
I'll do my best to make sure we have that within a week.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Somebody had come in that didn't get a chance to sign in. Did you want to sign in? Do you want to speak?
No. that's-
Okay,
that's-
okay. I'll get your name on here later then. Thanks. Okay. Appointments, resignations, and correspondence. Two pieces of correspondence that I have. One is asking for us to advertise in the 2018 Perry County Fair book. I don't know that that's something we typically do, so I think it's just a general correspondence if anybody wants to look at that. Also, the Perry County Chamber of Commerce has provided a save the date for the annual dinner. It's Friday, April the 6th, up at Little Buffalo from 5:30 to 8:30. And the speaker is J. Todd Ross, co-founder and CEO of Bellhaven Solutions. So it's $35 a ticket if anybody's interested in attending that. Does anybody have anything else for appointments, resignations, or correspondence?
PSAB conference,
The PSAB conference, okay?
I think it's in June, so we just want to make sure that we get that on the calendar if anybody wants to go, to make sure that we can enroll with the discount.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure no one needs to stay, it's in Hershey.
Okay. General reports, junior council. Ms. Meisner, do you have anything to report? Thank you. Borough engineer Greg Rogowski.
Madam President, a couple of quick items. Currently on the street to bid, we have two projects. One is the installation of the screw press that we previously purchased at the wastewater plant, as well as the installation of a generator at well number 4 on the water side. Both of those bids will be due prior to next council meeting, so we'll have some numbers to take a look at the next council meeting. The generator at well 4 is being funded through the CBG grant, so that's that. The Elm Street rehabilitation project, we got tentative word that the contractor's shooting for April the 5th to perform that work. That'll be confirmed as we get a little bit closer to that date, but there's an open invitation to all council members to pop out and see what's going on. This is kind of a new process that we're taking with respect to rehabbing some of the sewers on a trial basis, so we invite you to come out if you're available. The Community Development Block Grant, and item number 1 under action for tonight, with respect to the engineer's report. We did drill the first test well on the mountain. The good news is that we did hit water. However, the bad news is we didn't hit as much water as we were hoping to hit. And currently, we struck about 30 gallons a minute in that well, that test well. We anticipate if they were to ream that location out and finish it off, we'd probably get about 40 gallons a minute. And for comparison purposes, we were shooting for 75 gallons a minute, almost twice what we were looking for. And that 75 gallon a minute comes from the fact that the other well on the mountain is about that same capacity. So we're looking to provide some redundancy. So with respect to that, what we'd like to do is we have a second well site picked out. We'd like to go and drill a second test well at that second site. That would be in addition to the current contract. However, it would be covered underneath the Community Development Block Grant itself. They've authorized that particular additional work to be done. And we'll see what we get at the second site. If indeed the second site is better than the first, we'll finish the second site. If the first is better than the second, we'll finish that site. So
there's no third site?
There is no third site, correct, yeah. So certainly, that the 40 gallon minute yield in the test well that we have currently is nothing to laugh at. It's a good producer. However, we want a little bit more. And the fact that the second site is closer to a test well that was drilled many, many years ago, and that well produced 75 gallons a minute, makes us believe that that second site will also be fruitful in some regard. So now we're talking about items that are very close together, and we're talking about groundwater. So there's it's not there's some degree of magic associated with it. So we think that additional investment to the tune of about $7,000 is reasonable at this point in time before we continue to invest any more in that first well site. So we'd like to ask council. I have the exact number in 1 minute.
What was the depth of that, Greg?
500 feet.
Thank you.
And in well drilling, as we continue to go deeper, we do get a diminishing return. So it's not by drilling deeper in the same location we'll get better water. We're going through rock-bearing zones. So.
Is 500 feet, it seems very deep to me. Is that typical?
For a commercial well, a commercial
Yeah.
production well, it's not.
Okay, all right.
For a residential well, if you're comparing it to that, then yes.
I pulled ours up many times, so 500 feet sounds like a lot.
Keep in mind, streams down here, we're actually drilling below the stream. So the idea is you're not
Gotcha.
pulling water, surface water through the stream. And because we're up on the mountain, we actually got to drill it down like 125 feet just to get to the stream elevation.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. So it'll be what, $69.50?
Yes, correct. So requesting the borough authorize the additional work in the amount of $69.50. And they did indicate that they're willing to come out here very quickly and try to get that work done so we can keep moving.
Motion that we authorize $6,950 for drilling of the second well. Second.
Motion by Mr. Crosland, second by Mr. Adams to approve the $6,950 for the second site to see about the second test well. Any discussion? My only question, and Bill, maybe, how, is there a way that we could word our motions to be a little bit broader? Because we ended up with an additional remobilization fee because we weren't in a position to be able to make a decision quickly. $1,200 in the scheme of things may not be a lot, but it can be fairly significant. Is there any way we can do it to broaden it a little bit, that we can allow for things like this?
Sure. Yeah, you could word your motions in such a way that to allow someone to authorize additional, authorize $14,000, some number. With the call to be made by someone you delegate, that
Okay.
sort of thing. It can be done, but it would have had to been done.
Right, no,
before.
I understand it would have to be done, but I just want to, be cognizant of that moving forward, especially when we're doing things that involve magic, that, we know there's stuff that's gonna come up.
Sure.
And I just wanted to make sure we had some wiggle room there to
Yeah.
be able to do something.
Do you
That's
see
why
that
I
in-
asked about the third well too, because if there's
Yeah.
a chance for a third well, I was gonna say, let's just
Right.
approve that now.
Do
Right.
you see a need to change that motion for this well?
No, my point was, last month, we ended up being stuck in a box, and
Yeah.
we weren't able to move anything forward, or, change it, because the motion was very constricting, if you will, so.
I think if we had not found any water at the first well, maybe the third well would have been appropriate. But like I said, I think at this point, if we drill the second one and still don't find, then I think we're gonna be penned in with what we have at this point, so.
Gotcha. Any other discussion?
It was gonna miss you.
All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Second item is related to Chestnut Street. The contractor's ready to come back and do the final paving. We're kind of first out of the gate, if you will, with respect to being able to get this done. And the issue that we run into is that PennDOT certifies the bituminous mixture that comes out of plants, out of bituminous plants. And PennDOT does not allow you to place bituminous material prior to April the 15th, okay? The contractor is interested in placing the material prior to that, and we are interested in having him do that prior to April 15th, because we have to get the money spent out of the grant to get that closed out with respect to that particular project. So that April 15th date is a reference that we put in the specification. It's a pretty standard thing, but the issue is that it just won't come out with a certification saying that it's PennDOT approved. It's exactly the same blacktop. It's just coming out 15 days earlier. So I just didn't want to go ahead and make that call myself. I wanted to make council aware of it. We see the contractor still owns the placement, the maintenance, all of those things. If there's any issues with it, he still owns it. It's the same material. It just is not going to have that PennDOT certification. There is no grant implication to you waiving that requirement. I checked into that. And just because it is being funded by a grant, we want to make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on here. So we were supposed to have a walkthrough tomorrow morning. I don't think that's going to happen. But as soon as we are in a position. The second piece of that is there are other environmental factors, i.e. temperature, that drives when they can place it, no matter what the date is. If it doesn't get above freezing until April the 15th, we're still going to be placing material on April 15th. So we're not going to waive that environmental constraint. And unfortunately, it's going to be cold for a while. So, but we are up against a grant issue on the back end, and that's why we want to have a little flexibility here to be able to do that as soon as we can. So
It's not liquid fuels?
it's not liquid fuels, correct?
Would that make a difference with the PennDOT stuff? Thank you. Any wish for action from the table?
What exactly are we looking to authorize here?
I think an appropriate draft motion would be to waive the April 15th paving
Oh, I see, okay.
start date.
The blacktop's coming from Pensy.
It will likely come from Pensy. None of the plants are open yet, so as soon
Right.
as they figure out where it's coming from, and that's obviously the one that makes the most sense because you guys aren't very close to
Right,
anywhere. So
yes. I have no problem with it. Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Roger Williams, second by Lisa Landis to waive the April 15th paving blacktop date requirement. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Still your floor, sir.
I'm complete. Thank you.
Infrastructure, the capital improvement planning summary, is there anything that we should be looking at there, or is that just informational at this point, or?
It's not just informational. I was gonna get a little bit into it in my meeting.
Okay.
If you want my section, if you wanna wait till then, we can do it. Or I can do it now.
Were you planning on cutting loose because of the weather? Okay. Then we'll obviously, that looks like, perfect. Okay, does anyone else have anything for the borough engineer? Okay, public works operator, Mr. Hope.
Good evening. Couple of quick things. Wastewater side. January's DMR is completed, no violations. I just finished February's, also no violations. The Allen pumps, the injection point has been moved from the garage of the new building over to the old headworks building, because the lines were indeed clogged and blocked, but we just relocated them so they are properly functioning. Jeff, did you want to speak about the certificate, or?
The one we just got?
Yeah.
Yeah. For public, everybody else pretty much knows, we, what is it, we got a certificate for the operation of our SBR at the plant. I think that says about.
First one in many years.
First one in many years, shows that we've been trying to, and have been operating the plant at a higher level than was previously happening, so congratulations to us and Bessie.
For one.
And get that displayed as soon as possible.
That covers wastewater.
No, we got it, we actually deserved it.
Okay, great. The letter, the envelope was or
Yeah.
the name was wrong on the envelope. I was like, is that really hard? Okay, I'm sorry.
We had come into this. Water side, no violation on the water end of things. We did have well 4. The pump went down in the past since the last meeting. That has been replaced, modern pump put it in. And your water supply report was completed as of today, so that will be emailed out to Chris and at the parties that get that. So those are a couple things moving along. Greg did talk about the test well in the mountain. And that's all the new or completed items that I have going on. Water production, if you look at the report, we're at 35%. It's down from 45, but we noted some of that was attributed to meter repair. So just that alone is going to sharpen the number. So the 35 is still high, but I can tell you that we were all wells on to fill up the reservoir, to fill up the standpipe. Current status is well number 2, which is right across the street, is still running nonstop. Well 5 is working off of a float, the way the system is designed to be, and the reservoir is holding as of now. Well 4 is back up and functioning, working off of its floats, on-off switches, and the standpipe is satisfactory. So we are backing off on run times. 2 is the last one to back off on, and then we're going to sit and watch. Hopefully everything holds, but we don't know. So we are producing a lot more than what the typical demand of about 125,000. We're producing way more than that. So if we do have a leak, last month we talked about pursuing an outside source to come in. Currently to date, we are still producing more than what the typical consumption is. So we don't know if we're minor leak that we're just producing more to stay ahead, or if it was in meter losses. So we will know here in the next week or two as we get things operating more on the normal design procedures versus all on just to try to build up and stay ahead. So
Gotcha. One of the items you have here, mainline valve repairs at Ann and Market Street, responsibility of the borough. Is that something we need to be urgently addressing, or what's the status there?
that was discovered during Chestnut Street mainline replacement when we tried to shut down valves so that, to isolate that.
Oh, okay, all right, I remember that.
Those
Okay.
were found as leaking, so I don't want it forgotten.
Right, no, that's
So
fine.
it should be left on the radar till we come up with a game plan, replace, fix, whatever, but yeah, I didn't want to.
We've talked about it in committee. We know, like, Mike knows where there's some, and we're kind of figuring out which ones do we want to replace now, or wait till I'm
Yeah, so there's no urgent, but I didn't want to not have it listed.
That makes perfect sense.
Just
I just
so
want to
it's
make
not
sure
forgotten.
we're doing what we need to be doing, so. Anything else?
Nope.
Anything for the water operator? All right, thank you very much. Do you want to go back to Sunny Elizabeth though again?
No, you can't.
Solicitor Dissinger.
Something I want to talk about.
Oh, That's always a good day. Fire chief, skip over that for now, he may come in later. Borough mayor, John Capuano.
So I was thinking Appalachian Trail Committee was gonna be here tonight. They, just to put it on your guys' radar, they are talking about signs to put back in the borough. It's similar to the sign that's in front of the Doyle. Have you seen it? Appalachian Trail Community signs? I guess once upon a time, they came to council and wanted to put signs in the borough. And I won't use the same words that they use because my daughter's watching on the live feed. But they were not very nice about, you know, how the borough represented themselves with the signs in the borough. They just basically kind of shut it down. So I expect them at some point soon to come back, and they're looking to purchase them. I guarantee they're gonna ask the borough for some sort of help in purchasing the signs. They're about $50 a sign. I asked them to make sure that what's it gonna bring to the borough, how much are the signs gonna be, how many do you want, give me an idea of where you wanna place them. I wanted them to have a plan before they walked in here. That might be why they're not here tonight. But I would expect them to come in because they're very big with the community.
Did they tell you I already talked to him about all this? Before the meeting? Well, I don't wanna get cross information with you, with someone telling one thing and someone telling, that's the only thing I'm concerned about.
This was at their meeting, which was after revitalization.
Yeah, okay, because in between there, I reached out and said, look, you basically the same thing you said. I need something, you need something to present to somebody,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You can't just.
When I was at their meeting, it was last week, middle of last week, it was Wednesday, maybe Wednesday.
Okay.
It was the day after revitalization, that was Tuesday.
Yeah,
So this was Wednesday.
okay.
So
I
this
talked
would-
to him out.
And this was with their whole group, this was with, you know, all of them.
So this would be, where would these signs be placed?
That's what they got.
That's
That's what we
gonna
gotta
be the
figure out.
question. It's really
Well,
gonna
but
be
I
up to us and them.
Are they thinking of putting them like on a stop sign or?
Right,
That's what we're finding
yes.
out, to make sure
Okay.
that if they can,
Where we're allowed.
where
to
they
put them.
can, and how they can, like, that's all that the information is coming.
So that's coming to your committee,
Yes.
and you will review whatever codes issues there may or may
Yep.
not be, and if we can put
Correct.
stuff there, and, okay.
And how many tickets they have.
I think the possibility existed too of having them move some signs that are already in place.
Yes.
Because of the odd placement of those and putting them somewhere wherever they recommend.
Yeah, there's 4 signs in the borough right now, and there's 2 on the south end of Market Street, 2 on the north end, and they're literally side by side. And that's just because that's the only place that they were allowed to put them. So-
Well, and I was open to relocating, there was specifically one spoke about at Muncie Balls that needs to be brought into the borough, because it doesn't make much sense being at Muncie Balls, because they're not the Appalachian Trail community, we are. So they won't buy a lot, it won't be like, well, I'm gonna have to drop a lot of cash on this, I don't want to put I know money was mentioned, but that's a big fear point in this borough, there's not gonna be a lot of money involved. I told them that I would zip time up to help them out if I had to.
Team player.
I mean, we should be able to get some bolts. I don't think you need to do that, to be
Then
honest.
we'll have them fall down, okay, sorry, John, anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. Report in a packet, or report was on a table for codes enforcement.
Where on Cumberland Street is this property?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
What's that?
Where on Cumberland is this property?
It's the old arcade, the warehouse right there.
Is that occupied right now or is that abandoned?
It has a tenant on one end and it's just his storage of his paving stuff on the other end.
Inside the building? Is that well ours? I have
So
so many
he's
questions.
saying the stuff that's causing the issue is ours, and he's,
That, I guess he's brought this up years ago, he brought it
Right.
up to me in 2016.
okay.
I had said something and I have been confirmed that it is our well. I don't know if it's abandoned or not.
How many gallons a minute?
Yeah, what we got? Can we get 75, 80?
Is there a creek right there?
There is.
Real close to it.
Okay, so,
And his thing is he wants to redo that whole back area to make it safer for him to mow, maintain, and clean up. He was told not to do it by a retiree because of that well being there, and if you busted it, it would just drain everything, he said.
Which well is this?
I don't know.
Did
I
we
don't know.
own the well, is what you're saying?
No, not him.
No, the Duncannon Borough owns
So
that
we
well.
have wells
That's what
on that
he's-
location at some point.
Well, did we confirm that we have a well there?
This
Never
came
heard
from
of
Liddick, this came from Criley, I mean, it came from multiple people.
And we have a well
And
there.
they said it was abandoned,
Would you, like,
so
do
it
you know
may
anything
not
about
be
that?
there, and if it's abandoned, he wants to know, can we get rid of it, so he can do what he needs
Well,
to do.
yeah, if it's abandoned, why not?
Between
Okay, so
now
this is way out of my pay grade. Raquel.
and Scan is
I'm not aware of another well, so maybe step one would be to confirm that the borough.
What's your
doesn't
address?
need-
It is one,
My
one,
address?
138 Cumberland. The easiest way to get to the well is go up Ann Street from Market, and it's on the left, right as you start going down the hill.
Okay.
There's a wooded area behind the warehouse. Evidently, it's right there.
So what was the issue?
The
The
issue was
file-
grass and weeds.
Okay,
Back
okay.
there and
All right.
out front along Cumberland Street.
Okay, thank you.
Even in the winter right now, it's still a grass and weeds
No.
issue?
No, this was
This is carried
citation
over.
from May and September of last year.
And that is on our property.
Evidently,
The
it's
well.
on our property.
The
It's
well.
a well.
Yeah.
I don't know whose property it is. I didn't look at the GIS mapping. I don't know.
The only well that I know the borough owns, or has access to, and we don't even own it, that is on private property is at 3B Ice
Yeah,
Cream.
I was gonna say the one at 3B.
Okay, well,
That's the
I'm just
only one
telling you
that I
what
know
was
of.
told and what Liddick and Criley confirmed that there was something back there.
Okay.
We don't test it.
No,
Yeah, it's not a permitted public water.
no. That's why I'm thinking it's like many of the wells, like up in my house, I have two, but they were there for residents in the 1900s.
It's like Duncannon Borough Stranger Things.
So that's why I'm wondering if that well ain't the same thing, if it wasn't a community well for residents. There's quite a few of those in town.
Because there used to be a pump at the end of Ann
That could
Street, right there. Way over.
So I told him I'd bring it up.
Okay.
It's brought up. And then also about the culvert out front, I guess it's busted. They've known about it. Probably even said he's known about it. When it rains, it runs down off Cumberland Street, doesn't go anywhere, fills up as a pond, and then it drains into the basement. And he can't rent his basement out. He used to rent it out for storage, and that was about it. But he hasn't been able to rent it out for about 4 years, he said. So that's another thing I said I'd bring up.
And this is still the same property.
It's just on Cumberland Street. The other one's accessed from from Ann Street. You look lost.
Trying to figure out who gets it.
The
Street.
infrastructure.
Okay.
Can-
You're on it.
Visit there on, we can visit there on tour day too.
What dates?
We have a lot of places to visit on tour day, so I'm
The
gonna say that it
other
probably
thing
will
I
not
have-
be a tour day thing.
Tony has more.
Well, I just have one more question.
Sure.
There's almost 200 vehicles. Where do we want them? Edkins Towing doesn't have enough room.
200 vehicles for what?
The snow emergency on the routes.
They're still out there.
Yeah.
If they got them really close together, they could put them out at the EMS
Okay,
and then
well,
put them
has,
in a while.
alright, realistically, do you think people have, they
You
just
call
are saying
it.
F the snow emergency, or they just
Yes.
aren't aware?
At 7:30,
Probably both. I mean,
Okay,
we put
so
it out at
they're
11.
aware of it and they're just saying, look, I'm not moving my car.
I heard from multiple people as soon as it went out today
Right,
that they were at work, they couldn't move their car.
they could.
So, well, because they wouldn't be able to move it till they got home
I
from
heard
work.
them already say that.
So I got in touch with Chris,
Right,
and Chris and I said, when do we expect to really tow cars? And he's like 6 or 7, because you wanna give people a chance to get home. It's now 7:30.
okay, yeah, I was just curious.
You know, and if the snow does come
I'm parked
the
out
way it's
front.
supposed to, people are just kind of.
Because, oh my God.
This listener to
And engineers, what are the engineers?
And we're not doing any citations, we're towing everybody out.
That was
Is
the
right?
notification.
Okay, hang on.
Because
They're doing their own thing, let's wait till they're done so we can.
I've
Yeah,
got
we wanna
I
keep
think
those-
what he's talking about.
Do we
No,
wanna
that's
keep
fine,
those
but there's
vehicles
questions
on
for
our
Tony.
property
Yeah, it's messy.
For
So
liability
the issue,
reasons?
Tony, is that there's vehicles that need to.
We don't have an impound.
Nowhere to
Yeah,
go.
you need a real
He has
impound
room
lot,
for
they
maybe
need to go to,
5-6
So
down
they-
along 11-15,
we don't have a place for them.
not for,
Because they're saying
Not for
they come to
200.
the Centennial Field.
close. I counted about
But then we're
145.
liable.
Can we do another
Right,
code
well, we
red,
don't,
like in
we don't want them on our lot.
the reminder?
That whoever tows them has to
Hold on,
find.
Has to have an
I'm
Yeah.
like completely.
Do I have to go move my car, by the way? Are they gonna tow my car?
Hello, let's all come back together,
Lizzie, take
please.
it
I
down.
don't have a gavel, I'll use a water bottle.
Basically, those vehicles have to be towed to an impound yard, and that
Correct,
does
that's
not,
a
yes.
salvatore.
So you're gonna have to, the tower's gonna have to find an impound yard.
He's gonna have to find
Yes.
one on his own, that's
Yes.
not us.
Yes, no, we're not gonna be liable for someone's vehicle,
Right.
so,
That's why we hire a seller.
No, I get it,
yeah.
I get it.
Do we have?
So if you're watching at home and you're parked on a snow emergency route, go move your car.
I do like, is there a way to do a code red, like?
That's an extra one. There.
If we have the opportunity to disseminate any more information to people who are willing to comply, I got permission from the Lutheran Church late this afternoon, not too long before the meeting, that they would allow people to park their parking lot as well. Now, obviously, that doesn't hold 200 cars, and we probably aren't gonna tow people there, but if anybody's interested in moving your car to there, they have given their permission for that.
Yeah,
And
the
I don't
municipal
mind knocking
lot.
before I have the tow truck hooked up, I mean, I guess I got all night, don't matter.
Get us a sexy vest, we can go knock on doors.
Hey, ask him, he supplied it.
Motion to authorize Tony to hook up a deputy.
Chris, do you have any input on this at all?
I agree with the idea, we should put out another code red.
Okay.
And,
Okay, so if we put out another code red, is it just gonna be move your cars now, like this?
Yes.
Or should we?
Towing is about to commence in the borough if
Yeah,
your
I like it.
vehicle is parked illegally.
Right, I mean, it went out at noon,
11 o'clock.
you know, I mean, it went out early enough, and
Yeah,
it's
I
now
saw it.
7:30. I mean, I think we've given people enough time to get home and move the car.
And I don't think at this point there's any thought that this storm isn't going to come, so they really need to.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, the snow emergency was called, gotta move the car.
Right. So, do you want to go do that now, or do you want us to wait
well,
till
if you want
later
to
in
get
the
through
meeting?
secretary, and, I mean, my written report is all that I have,
Okay,
so I can go do that quickly.
I have one more question for Tony. Has there been any movement on the giant antenna sitting on Market Street?
Is it still there?
It
Yeah,
is still
It was there
there.
today.
I know, I've followed up on this like 3 times with you, I'm sorry.
No, I
It's
was
just-
told that he removed it.
No,
I didn't
it's
see
pulled back
it.
maybe
I
a
didn't
foot.
go down on there, so.
It's been moved
I was
about
gonna say,
a
it
foot.
looked like it was pulled back into the doorway.
It seems to move, it's moved twice now. It was on the sidewalk, it got
Okay.
pulled to the doorway. Then like in the last 24
In
hours
front of the
or
old
so.
sportsman's store, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. More eyes is better than mine.
Can I ask one more question? I don't wanna. 18 to 28, it looks like the soffit of the front porch is now collapsing as well. I don't know if that's been on your radar at all.
Usually it's, when it becomes a safety issue.
There's siding and what have you that's fallen down onto the sidewalk and now on the front porch, right across the street from the antenna, pretty much.
That's
It's a
real-
rough little area.
Alright.
Thanks, Tony.
Never seen this antenna.
anything else for Tony?
Never seen this antenna. How did I miss it?
Thank you. Call us if you need coffee.
It's one of those huge.
Okay, secretary.
I have nothing.
3 weeks.
Hey, Bill, see how nicely she said that?
I'm already,
Everybody's had Chris's report. I don't know that there's any, these items all appear in the agenda for the most part. So we'll come back to him in a little while and see if there's anything anybody needs to ask him.
Yeah.
Okay, so treasurer's report. Have the monthly banking review provided through February 28th, 2018.
Motion to approve the monthly banking review as every report subject to audit.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Crawford, second by Mr. Adams to approve the monthly banker review as the treasurer's report. I think you're okay, Bill.
I don't think we are.
They're gonna start at one end or the other.
You're in the middle.
Subject to audit, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, the ratification and approval of bills, which is your selective check register through February 20, or for the month of February, 2/1 to 2/28, and you indicated you have a question.
Is this a typical expense here? This $1,000?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a, part of the personnel policy is a reimbursement to the employees for their deductible for their health care, and that's what that was, yes.
I haven't seen it so far. That's good. Thank you.
Was that a check or was that done in the draft?
A what or a what?
Was that a check or was that done as an electronic draft?
It was a physical check.
Start with the Jensen or something?
Any other discussion on the check register? Any wish for action from the table?
Motion to ratify and approve the bills.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Crawford, second by Mr. Adams to ratify and approve the bills. Now for real, any discussion? All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Standing council committee reports, finance, administration, and communication, Mr. Crawford.
I think we finally got the signers square on the checking account. I don't know that there's much else to report. Anything
Okay.
from either of you?
Anything for Mr. Crawford for finance, administration, and communication? Parks and recreation, Mr. Williams.
We just have Sled Fest coming up here in April. By next month, we'll have some bills, well, asking for approval for money to fund and pay for some of our end of Sled Fest. The Parks and Rec does part, and the Hooligans do the other part. So, we don't have all those figures together as of yet. We should have it by next month.
But those items are all budgeted, so.
Yes, yep.
If you need any labor or other help toward that, feel free to let me know.
Okay,
Do what I can.
thank you.
You're hired.
Yeah, that's Chris, he's in charge, you gotta work for him. He's tough too.
All right.
I know.
Anything else for parks and recreation?
That's all.
Okay. Personal, legal, and IT, no name there, but it's mine. Everyone was provided, so we had already approved the EIP funded IT project to award that to 2K Networking. That was done in the previous month, not February. So this is the actual proposal from them for the nuts and bolts of it, the services and the machinery and equipment that they are intending to provide. Were there any questions or anything that anyone had regarding this proposal? Is there any wish for action from the table?
Motion to approve the detailed proposal for EIP-funded IT project.
Second.
Beat you to it.
Motion by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Croswell to approve the EIP funded IT project. My only comment, does it matter that we don't have their name in the, we already granted it to them, so it doesn't matter that we don't have their name in the motion, the company name in the motion.
Well,
Doesn't matter.
I don't think so.
Okay,
All right,
That's what I understand.
fixed on it though.
Yeah.
Remember we had discussed the expiration date is actually before the delivery date.
yeah, I think Chris took care of that, we'll
Okay.
verify that when he comes down, but I'm pretty sure he already took care of that. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The only other item that I have is for, in the previous month's minutes indicated that the borough manager position, that selection would, or that process would work through the personnel committee. Instead, I've created a borough manager selection committee. It is John Capuana, Jeff Kirkhoff, and Chris Adams. So they will be taking care of the entire process for the advertisement, and the interviews and the selection, and then bringing it into council. So, did you guys have any update on that, or are you just getting started? Okay.
No, I really wanted it to be brought out in public first before we really move forward.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Anything else for me under personnel, legal, and IT? Okay, Mr. Adams, revitalization and public safety.
I have no items for the agenda. There is a copy of my monthly meeting summary in all its glory in the packet.
Just for the record, this does not do the meeting justice.
Not at all.
So,
To clarify, for those of you who were not in attendance, the meeting was addressing a specific issue that was brought up at last council meeting. There was a lot of misinformation that had to be dealt with. And even though there's nothing on the agenda, a lot was taken care of during the meeting. And that's why we encourage people to come to committee meetings, because it's much more open. You can say what you want, but you have to be willing to accept the answer you get. So there's nothing for the agenda tonight, but there was a lot of work done in the committee meeting.
We do have something, correct? We've got that sign.
yes,
We're
the
working
sign
on
in the
the side,
back.
the kitchen sign. It should be out and
The sign for the
mounted. We're
kitchen.
trying to find a location
That wasn't
for
taken
that.
care, I thought we were gonna.
No, it's still there.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't pick a location or.
What sign?
Okay, in relation
We have a
It might
location
take
for that
two
sign.
people to carry the
All right,
sign.
let me.
I think it's a double. Isn't there one exactly like that at the Slugworks?
Yeah,
There's
it's
two panel sled works, but there's just
Like
not
a-
one there that.
it goes down
We
here.
were at
It's like for cats.
revitalization and,
It's been in there, moved
Cheryl
around.
Shell showed up and said, yeah, like that.
My
sign has been in
intention
there
was
for hours.
originally, just for you're aware, that we were going to discuss it at the committee meeting and then come up with a plan before we went.
Mike-
out.
You're the feet.
To answer your question, Mike
I was gonna
Riley
say that
is
I was
planning on putting that down at the entrance of Noy Park.
Yeah, I heard rumor of that, I just wanted to confirm it
Yeah.
before I brought it up.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm sorry.
No,
yeah.
it's nothing to apologize.
We made it. Plus it covers up Jeff. I mean,
What, was this somewhere before?
No,
Well, it's been
It's got dirt on it.
Yeah, I think it was.
It
in
was-
the closet for a couple of years.
it was put into the ground to take a picture of to satisfy the grant. This is a Fred Lauster sign, okay? It is supposed to be at the entrance to Noy Park.
Why did we leave it there?
I don't know why it was never left there and it was taken out, but that's where it was.
I think we get it back there.
Well, now, there's already a sign at the entrance of Noy Park.
Yeah.
What if we put it down by the bridge in Noy Park?
We can put it at the other end.
Kind of at the other end, so that you're not just like looking, because there's already, I think, 2 signs there at the entrance of
Yeah.
Noy Park.
Just don't ruin anybody's line of sight down at the end of that path. We don't wanna go through that again.
Yeah. So,
So this will be determined by the revitalization committee, and a recommendation will come from them.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the field trip,
Take back the
gentlemen.
kitchen.
Yeah, let's take it back.
The snow might be deep enough, might hold it up, stick it out there now.
Tomorrow.
Surprisingly light.
That's all I got.
All right.
There's a lot of writing on there.
It's been in there since I started working here.
yeah. It's been here since, well, the date should be on there. I worked for the borough when it came, so. Because we put the other ones in up at sled work. And that one was supposed to go there too,
Oh,
but
one
then
more
we
thing
was,
I did want to bring up in all seriousness, people
Not
like
our
to joke about the
property.
buzzards, but we were advised by professionals to put a dead effigy buzzard up, and I witnessed with my own eyes and have video of them eating one of their own and not being concerned with the fact that it was dead. So I know that was something we were gonna actually spend money on, and I didn't see it working with an actual deceased vulture deterring them from being there.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, it did affect us as well. We had one with an injured wing in our yard that we had to chase out of the yard so the dogs wouldn't get it.
So I just wanted to bring it up again.
They're still around.
Current generation buzzards just don't have the same respect for life.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Chris, oh, look,
I just got my
getting the red call.
Yeah, I'm getting one too.
I
Chris,
thought we'd find out if anybody didn't have their phone silenced.
can you, where are we at with the USDA stuff? They're saying that the buzzards ate the effigy, so now what?
The buzzards didn't eat the effigy, we didn't put the effigy out yet.
No, you misunderstood. There was so somebody,
one of their
somebody clipped one down there with a car, and so we had an actual, dead bird, and they advised us that if you put a fake dead one up, that they'll be all offended by the fact that there's a dead one laying there and it'll fly away. That's really dumbing it down, but that's basically what they said, and I saw a real dead one, and they were just eating it. They didn't fly away.
Well,
That could be part of like they see, if they see an injured buzzard, maybe they attack and kill, so they were doing that. Seeing a dead one may indicate they're already
No,
been
this one was dead.
Well, maybe it wasn't dead when they got there, is what I'm getting at.
We need more investigation.
And maybe seeing a dead one is different than killing one.
We don't practice
they're
law without a
experts.
license. How about we not practice buzzard deterrent without a license?
They are becoming quite an issue, they're tearing people's roofs up and stuff, and we are not in the business of eradicating rodents, but they're not going away, and there's gonna be more, you know what I mean? And I did see somebody feeding them again.
I'll put it, we have two, but they gave us essentially two options to get rid of them, and we're gonna use both. I don't think.
And
We need to get that figured out.
Yeah, Chris, when did we set up in this, to do that in
We
the
operate
spring?
the money to do it.
been waiting for the spring, for the weather to break and,
Today's the first day.
Yeah,
but if, whether, as long as there's another storm in the forecast, I wasn't calling them back
They tried
to.
that in Dolphin.
I will tell you that,
They came back.
Tony did, take care of,
That.
up on Lincoln Street, in fact, right next to Rogers, there was a lady that had cat food out on her porch
Yep.
all the time. And Tony did send her a letter about it, because that is against our ordinances to have pet food out. It has to be in a secure container. I think it says rat-proof or something like that in our ordinance. And I've noticed going back up past there that they're not hanging out right around there. And I don't know, Roger, if you've noticed a difference, because they were all over her porch and all over her house.
Come up tomorrow if it's decent out and go out my back porch and sit with
They're
20
still-
of them.
Because when I've
They
gone by
won't
in the
move
front,
anymore
I
from
haven't
you
seen them in
neither,
the
so
front.
they're not afraid of humans anymore.
Yeah, because that's what's happening when people are feeding them down there at the sled works. I'm not saying that, the lady putting the cat food out did it, but there's people hand feeding them.
Hand feeding
Now,
down
the
sled work.
cat food, hand feeding them, any kind of feeding them is going to attract them. That's
Yeah.
what they come, it's for a food source.
I'm sorry, they're hand feeding turkey vultures.
Yep,
Yeah, by
Yes.
our house, John.
Yeah.
Just like people feed ducks and geese, and you shouldn't feed wildlife, but they do.
yep.
I couldn't believe it, I just stood there and watched them.
Yeah, there's tons up towards Wayne's house, that area's just got tons of them. And now it looks like, I've seen them on High Street too, so.
Timmy Mares and I counted as many as 220 up there on Lincoln Street at one time. Timmy and I. I counted
It's a
the
lot of
110
fingers.
and Tim counted on up.
Got it.
And dead ones do not deter.
Yeah, I'm in
Trust
agreement
me.
with that, yeah.
I could take you now and show you 3.
Yeah.
And they'll be back tomorrow, and maybe they're in mourning, I don't know, and they peck them and then they move on.
It's not.
They're saying their
Well,
goodbyes.
so I think we knew going into this.
I'm no environmental expert, but there is I'm seeing more and more die. So that has me a little worried too, because we didn't have dead ones.
Maybe that's a good thing, that's.
Well, it could
less.
be good or it could be really bad. So it could be a public health thing, I don't know.
Well, I think we've enlisted the help of the USDA. This is what they do.
It is.
Mhm.
So, I was, well, anyway, they've got some interesting tactics. So let's give them a chance to see happens, and then we can move forward from there. The other piece that I would probably like to see from them is some sort of information that we can disseminate to folks of, what not to do. While there's lots of things in our ordinance that people don't pay attention to, maybe bringing to their understanding that things that they're doing at their home is contributing to this infestation, I will call it, that we have. So, we have moved from chickens to buzzards, and I'm so excited.
Okay.
Can I add one thing to that, Christie?
Sure.
If we all sat here and remember when Mr. Rosen was in and talked to us,
Yep.
his part was to put signs up asking people not to feed them. I have not seen that done. And that's where a lot of people pull in the morning, and they're there with birdseed in their hand feeding them. So Mr. Rosen didn't do his part. We can't put those signs up on his property, but he didn't do his part neither.
Well, maybe.
So maybe a memo back to him, reminding him of his part?
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe he thought that it was better to give the money toward the USDA plan that we paid for, because
Well,
they
maybe.
reimburse us for part of that.
He did agree to pay part of it.
Okay.
A simple conversation with him should suffice, just asking him to put up some signage. Or,
So Lisa will follow up with Mr. Rosen to ask him of the status of said signs.
well, I mean, with Sled Fest coming up too, there's gonna be a lot of people down there, so.
Everybody can dress up in buzzards. It's
Maybe this sled needs to go away and we drop a buzzard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that
Sorry, I'm
like to watch trains. If you can get people that like to watch buzzards, you can get more people in town.
I heard a conversation in a local establishment, not one that I'm normally in, and the conversation was around how much these people love the buzzards.
Yep.
And they were their buddies. And I'm going, do you realize they pecked the rubber out of a lady's windshield the whole way around? And the windshield wipers, you know?
That would be a place you wouldn't want to go back twice.
Yeah. Okay, anything else for Chris, revitalization, public safety, and buzzards? No. Infrastructure, Mr. Kurdoff.
All right, let's start with a couple housekeeping things. So we had already approved in the budget to get a new mower. And we got some quotes for the mower. It looks like we now have, we got our third quote, it looks like. I haven't got to talk to Mike since we got these, so Chris, what does, I personally would rather get it from Smith's, being that they're local. And that when we need to take it in for service, they're like right there, and the worst place I looked at, that looks pretty far away.
I would assume that it would be just like an automobile, that any dealer would perform warranty service on it.
Yeah. Because I mean, the difference in price, once you add a delivery from Glen Rock, the difference is $400. To be honest, I think, I personally would rather just give that extra $400 to Smith's than to somewhere in Glen Rock, just because we know we'll get better service at Smith's than if we have to drive to Glen Rock.
Whenever we've gone out for bid, don't we, is there an obligation to accept the lowest price?
This isn't a bid. You can
Okay.
No, these are
These are just
quotes.
quotes. Okay, thank you.
I make a motion, we purchase the mower from Smith's Farm and Machinery.
Second.
Right, sneak in there, Mike. There you go.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say it, Mike just hopped all over the YouTube here.
There's a motion by Mr. Williams, seconded by Michael May, to approve the purchase of the Ferris IS 3200 mower with grass flap attachment from Smith's Farm Equipment in Newport, PA. Is there any further discussion? Oh, okay. okay, they're saying they could take $100 off if we picked it up. Okay. Any further,
Oh, you mean the Wertz one?
no, Smith.
Oh, Smith's, okay, yeah.
Yeah, they need a letter stating that they received the order or bid, and then they can deduct an additional $100 if the unit's picked up.
Right.
So I don't know that we have that willingness or.
I
Is there any
figured we'd
further
approve
discussion?
it, if we decide they wanna pick it up, then we pick, like, if we wanna pick it up, we can pick it up and save $100, but I don't think.
Any further discussion on the mower? All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, second thing I want to go into is the sewer project. And everybody got the capital improvement planning summary. I mean, pretty much everything you see here, we talked about here. And I believe that there's two other projects that we had talked about that you are at it now, I think. Or we were going to get info from Greg on, that aren't on here. I, for the life of me, cannot remember at the moment. They're not super important.
The water line on Cumberland.
Cumberland, the water line where the pipe broke earlier this year down on Cumberland that would wrap it around, that's one of them.
And the loop on Lincoln.
Right, okay, and then at the end of the new Lincoln Street, connecting it to High Street, the water line to make it a loop rather than to be like two dead ends. Those are other projects that we, as a committee, wanted to add to this list. I'm not sure, because we've kind of already approved this sewer project in a way, I guess. I'd like to have Greg start on drawing that out, based on basically the sewer plant issues. Start getting us some drawings so that we can get this put on the radar of PennVest so we can get going, because I don't want to miss another PennVest date. At this point, we're already talking about what, Greg, the August date?
It was August 9th is the next reasonable date, so.
So, I guess, I don't know if it requires a motion, because we've already approved this, but I would move that we have Greg start drawing up the plans for that project.
Second.
We're gonna call it the Headworks upgrade.
Okay, the headworks
Just
upgrade.
Separate.
And essentially, this would be, what are we looking at here? This would be the priority projects for the sewer system. It would be the,
Can I get the motion on the floor first and then we'll?
oh, sure, yeah, go ahead.
So there's a motion by Mr. Kirkhoff, seconded by Roger Williams to authorize the borough engineer to begin the drawings for the Headworks upgrade. Now discussion.
Okay. This would include obviously it would be, I assume we'd try and have them reimbursed for the screw press, correct?
Meaning the installation of it.
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Screw press, the solids handling upgrade that you see on this list, and the headworks upgrade that you see on this
So
list.
for clarification for me, we're just looking at the sewer. We're
Yes,
not
this is just-
discussing the water.
Nope, this is just, remember we
Okay.
talked about doing a $3 million project, and
Right.
this would essentially be, instead of being one big project, it'd be part A of that project, and then part B would come as we can get some more. The problem we're having is we'd like to do some more testing, and that's why we wanted to get those flow meters that we authorized last month, to try and narrow down what lines need to replace, because we'd like to replace some lines that really need it, but we just don't know what yet. So get this done and see. You were also, I think we talked about, Greg, looking at the meadow as part of that, because that's an issue we know we have. We need to do something. You're going to start looking into different options that we think would be the best, because that may be one where it's a shallow area down there, so it would not be as far to dig down and replace the entire line. Whereas up on some of the other places in town, you'd be digging, how deep, Greg?
Well, anywhere from 8 to like 16. I mean,
Yeah.
16.
So it'd be a little cheaper to replace down there than it would be in other places, and do we know, we're not sure if we want a line and increase pipe. Greg's gonna start looking into that, but I'd just like to get plans started so that we can get this thing, I don't wanna miss another PennVest date, because those are few and far between.
So
Okay.
I think important there, I'm sorry,
No, you're
is
good.
that with PennVest, you need to have your plans. It's not just a napkin sketch that we're presenting to them. You know, we need to have by the 9th, we can have a permit in hand. I mean, we can have the package complete to give to them to be able to provide us the best opportunity for the funding. So.
Okay. Where are we at, Chris, with the 2016 audit and then getting, because we needed that
before we could move forward with any of the
With
financing
the bank
at all.
financing, yeah.
Yeah.
They have not been in yet to finish it. Bob has everything done. We're waiting on their timetable when they can come in to do it.
Because I'm assuming Penvest would need, just like a
They
regular
would-
lender, they would need that information
I
as well.
think they probably want to see it, yes.
Okay.
By August, I hope that by August we're at least done with 2016, and I would expect we'd be along with 2017 at that point. I can't guarantee it, but I would hope so.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, and I-
that's the intention.
Yeah.
I had planned to have the consultant, Jay, and also the bond counsel at the next finance meeting. So finance can dive into the Penvest part of this.
Okay. Do you have any concerns with, well, okay, I guess clarify for me, so what, are we looking at the 2019 wastewater treatment plant headworks upgrade, the 850,000?
Yes.
Or are we looking at the entire list?
No, we are looking at the wastewater treatment plant solids handling upgrade that's for 2018, and then 2019 wastewater treatment plant headworks upgrade,
Okay,
and then 2020 Meadows sewer rehabilitation.
Yes, it's three.
so all three of those?
Yes, in conjunction with the screw press that's already
Yes.
done.
And then the Cumberland Street and Lincoln Street loops?
No,
That's
no,
water.
those are,
That's on
that's
water.
water.
Oh,
That's
Those are just two, those were two additions to this whole list.
gotcha.
That,
They're on the
after
water
we
side.
got this list at the meeting, those were two projects we wanted to see added into this list as future capital projects we've already identified.
Okay. So my question for you would be, any estimation on engineering costs for these three projects? Or is that number already included in here?
We included a kind of a baseline number. We did not put a whole cost together. If you would be okay with it, I'd like to put that together and bring it back for the next meeting. We can still get started. Typically you're in the 10% range. So I mean, that gives you at least a ballpark if you're comfortable with that. It's not gonna be nothing, certainly, so. But that's what you're talking about, and it's even, on top of that, you typically range into, another 5 to 6% for construction administration costs. So it could be as much as, maybe 15% more, what should.
Okay. Would beginning the engineering on these three projects put together, would any of that be wasted even if, like if something happened and we didn't get the Penvest funding, we would still be able to use those plans moving forward?
Absolutely.
So, okay. And the benefit of doing all three of them at the same time? Just because they're all connected, or?
Well, particularly with Penvest financing, the process is fairly arduous. To go through the process, have it approved, there's special audits on the back end. There is a cost to that money, okay? So as opposed to like a bank financing where you could go out and just, grab whatever that sum of money is and kind of just do what you want with it, the Penvest is much more rigid. So I think it just avoids you having to go through that process multiple times. Typically, when you show a greater need with a span of projects, you're more likely to get some favorable results. I think the borough, particularly with some of the documented LMI issues, like that all plays into it. So it's all good things. The reality, and I've said this to the committee before, you guys could borrow $10 million and spend all of it. So it's a matter of trying to pick a number that is a good number and has some economy of scale associated with it. The more you kind of spend, the cheaper the individual units become. So as opposed to perhaps in the past where you did one segment of line replacement at a time, okay, that, wasn't around when that was going on, but that wasn't a good approach, at least in my opinion. It's cheaper for you to do the whole line segment at once and even borrow the money over time to be able to pay that back. So, yeah, I think you want to be in that, especially if you're going to go through the headache with Penvest, you want to be up, over $1 million for sure, and see what you can get out of it. Because then you have a greater opportunity too to possibly get some grant component to it. But that's all kind of remains to be seen based on the application.
I'd love for this to just be one project and be going one time, but at the point we're at, we can't wait. And I don't wanna waste money replacing lines when we find out we don't need to replace that line. And I think, I think that just needs to wait till we can do more research into which lines need replaced, which ones need line, which ones need this. We too many questions on that stuff that I'm not comfortable with yet, if that makes sense.
The first suite of projects have been identified. We've done some televising to determine what's going on in the meadow. You know, we've talked about the plant for a couple of years now. I mean, those scopes are fairly well defined. The rest of it is way not defined. So, you know, we need a little bit of time to
And I think
figure
we
that
talked
out.
about, like, if in the next month or two, this isn't gonna take him like 5 days, this is gonna take a couple months to
10
like,
days.
plan out. If we find projects that need to be done in the next short time frame, whatever it is,
Right.
we can put them into this. If it's like a line project, it can go into this. If it's a bigger project, we might not be able to, but we can still add to this, hopefully, for at least some period of time, if we identify huge needs. But for now, let's get the plant working right, pretty much. Let's
The
fix
plant needs to be resilient. That's the right word to use, because it's not right now.
Well,
It's working right.
If
it's
the
just
plant's
not.
fixed and we don't get lines replaced, it will still be better off, because we'll still have a plant that's working right and not, even though it'll have I&I, it will be working.
I'm doing math. I'm not texting my friends. So, ballpark, 1.5 million.
Yep.
Oh, that's the number that's there. Oh, because I added in the 10%, so that I was not including the Elm Street project and the smoke testing, because I was including the 15% for the engineering and the admin. So, the Elm Street and the smoke testing, are we including them in this funding as well, or are we paying for that somewhere else?
Elm Street's already approved, we approved that in January here. And smoke testing's approved, and
But we're not holding it for funding, for this
No,
funding.
no,
So those
no.
projects continue on the way
they're
going.
continuing.
So we're still looking at a 1.5 million
And
more.
we already have the materials for smoke testing, correct? So that, we don't actually need any money for that at this point, that's just
Okay,
actually doing it.
I'm just trying to make sure I've.
Yep, no, you're good.
Any other discussion? Does anybody remember the motion? So the motion was to get started on drawing up the headworks upgrade. All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the last thing I have is I'm reading the revitalization and development minutes here.
Oh, wait a minute. That wasn't on the agenda. Is there any public comment
Oh.
regarding that motion that we just made? Okay, thank you.
And I wanted to let it be known that we discussed some of these issues at Infrastructure 2. We had a public attendee, and it actually went really well, I thought. Nancy, that was here last month, came, and, I mean, she had some good ideas. We talked about a few things, and we talked about signs on the square, either actual signs stating event parking
Where it
is
is.
this way, and having some of the fold-out signs that they could put out. Nancy said that if we gave her one, she would put it out, like saying, event parking's this way, please park there for today's event, or something like that. She had brought up a couple things that we are gonna look into further, but that was definitely something we talked about, so. I think that's all I had on that. Just wanted to let you know that we talked about that a little bit too.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Kirkhoff and infrastructure?
Kurt, tour date.
Ah, yes. Sorry about that, I forgot about it. On April 21st, we will be having the tour of the borough's wastewater treatment plant, the borough building here, we'll be in the garages. We're gonna try and visit as much as we can in one day. We'll come up with a better schedule here over the next month. It'll depend on weather and To be honest, it'll depend on what projects are going on at the time too, because if there's construction somewhere, we won't be there. We're gonna start that at 10 a.m. It's open to the public, so anybody out there watching is welcome to come. So, I just want to let everyone here know, I hope everyone can attend. We need to get that advertised so that all of the Borough Council can attend. It should also be advertised for the sewer committee. And I assume Penn Township will advertise on their own, maybe, I don't know how that'll work. Should we advertise the JOAC?
That's what I would do. I'd just
I think it would just be
advertise
better
it
off
at
to
JOAC.
advertise that it could be a meeting of the JOAC also.
If it's education, I didn't think we had to advertise.
We don't have to advertise it if it's for that, we talked about last month that it would just be better off to advertise it, just in case.
I wanted to advertise.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can make motions in the woods.
I do have a question, I guess, can fall under my committee. We talked about parking last month here, his committee, my committee talked about it. If, let's just say, Bill, at the borough, like, we were interested in getting more parking. And we also know there's buildings that are in bad shape. If I wanted to, could I call and say, how much would this cost? I guess I'm part of the borough, so I'd be looking at the borough to buy a property to put a parking lot on. Is that okay? Can I do that? I mean, I can't make an offer or anything,
No.
but.
I mean, you can see what it would be sold for and whether it's available and bring it back to council, certainly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure before I did anything like that, but
That's perfectly legit.
So there's the cost of the property, but then there's also the cost of demolition.
right, so like,
That would be-
if I came back and said, let's purchase this property, it'd be it could be cost at first, but then plus demolition.
Right. What's going through my little lawyer mind is when we purchase a piece of real estate, there's a procedure for that, and we have to get an appraisal
Yeah,
and justify it, so, and then,
we would approve looking into it would be more of we'd offer the money to see if we get it first
Sure.
and then,
you
okay.
could certainly talk to them.
Okay, that's something I thought about this past couple weeks and didn't want to step on toes if I did that.
Just information for the council. Obviously, you couldn't bind the borough.
All right.
Do you want to take the parking stuff? You and I are kind of thinking the same exact thing.
Let's keep it both of us for now. Let's see what ideas just in case people come to your committee or my committee.
We are on each other's, well, I'll.
You're on my committee, and if you get parking things, you can tell me about it. I'd like to take more public input, because Nancy had some ideas.
Mr. Hobby had some, they probably are exactly what Nancy.
I'm sure they're close. Nancy actually had she actually brought us some good information too. I mean, she really did her research, so I like to see that. All right, thanks.
The only other thing I had, my understanding is your committee discussed spring cleanup and a date has not been set.
Yep.
We're looking at May or June.
Yeah, we're looking at potentially May or June,
Right.
and if people don't show the interest, it may be a fall cleanup. Because we did do 2 last year, so.
People are calling and asking.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I was gonna ask you to.
Interest is there.
Yeah, we
There's
are
the
getting-
interest, yeah.
We're getting online requests as well.
And I know earlier you had talked about not doing electronics,
Yeah.
and everybody that's asked me so far, that's all they were concerned about was electronics.
We're thinking about how we want to advertise, because there's other ways to get rid of the
Yeah, that's what I was
electronics.
gonna say, is there a secondary thing that?
There are, county does one, and I believe we found a center somewhere that took some for some guy. That he told us about. We're gonna get, when we do clean up, we wanna have, because what happened is last time when we did the second one, it wasn't as popular as the first time, so we don't wanna spend $2,000 if we don't think we're gonna fill it with $2,000 worth of TVs, because that did happen 2 years ago.
Would we want to set a date tonight, if you're looking at May?
We can.
Then we can answer people's questions when
The
they call and
only-
ask.
The only comment that I would make, not that it's something we can't, undo, is that, baseball season will be going on then, so we'd be
That's right,
impacting.
because we'll be
I think
done.
that's why typically we've done it around Earth Day,
Uh-huh.
because it was,
Yep.
earlier in the year and we weren't conflicting with that. So, I mean, certainly they can reschedule, you know, it would be a rain date either way, but just keep that in mind.
Do we, I mean, we could, I mean, I think, I talked to Mike and Mike was okay with pretty much whenever we wanted to do it. Do we wanna set it for that last weekend in April, just if we have to change it, we can, just set
Sled
it?
Fest.
Sled Fest.
Oh,
Saturday,
that is
yeah,
Sled
and that's
Fest.
opening day.
And that's
for
what it
Duncannon
was,
baseball.
and
So
that's
that'd
what
be
it was
perfect
last
to
year
offset
too,
it.
so.
All of them are?
Yeah,
Well,
I think
thank
so.
you, I'm the coach, I should know that.
pretty sure.
When is,
Earth Day's the 21st of April, I think.
21st,
And
the day
that's
we're
when we're
doing
going
it.
on our tour, the 3-hour tour.
I have birthday.
And I would say we'd move
Oh,
that,
maybe
but
the 22nd.
I can't move it further. I can't, I personally can't be there, and since it's my committee, I thought I should at least
Right,
be.
yeah, we'll just, so we got Sled Fest, the weekend before that is tour, so we'd have to either go earlier or just do it later and deal with, maybe conflicting with a baseball game or two. Baseball games usually don't start before.
I mean, we can do it, I mean, I don't need to be there for cleanup day, we can do it the, what is that, the 14th of April?
Oh,
Not a lot of
pushing
time
it
to
earlier
work on
isn't a
it.
problem, I thought you guys didn't want.
Oh, yeah, it was mostly, that's something I've been taking the lead on, and I don't know if I can be there at that point, but that's okay, we can do that, Roger can be there too.
If you have a baseball game, aren't they usually in the afternoon?
No.
No, I've said
No.
let's start at 10.
9, yeah, 9 or 10.
Yeah, they usually start in the morning.
Because there's so many teams and not enough fields.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that, Roger? Because you're
I
the
can
one that
be,
would have to
I
be.
can be there till noon on the 14th. I have a
Okay.
sale that day.
Do we have enough time to promote it?
Do you have to check with Sylvester's or anyone?
Yeah,
You
oh, yeah,
gotta-
yeah, we'll
You
have to
gotta
find
line up
somebody.
those people, so.
From a communications perspective, like 3 weeks, that's not a lot of time to promote it. You know what I mean? Get it out, get that information out aside from social media.
Yes, we have
Is that
we have
enough
people
time?
that said they never heard of the high school musical, even though that's been publicized and everything. So,
I don't wanna put the kibosh
I
on it,
just,
but that's not a lot of
I
time.
would, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not, I was okay with doing it in May. Baseball, I didn't even realize about baseball. Forgot they even played out there.
Well, is there a way we can get a schedule?
Yeah, it's online.
It's online.
What schedule?
Baseball.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, it's all.
Can you pull that up and give us a date in May that says it's empty?
There
I
won't
can
be any.
look.
There won't be any.
I don't think
They're gonna
Duncannon
play
does
every
it.
weekend.
Yeah, every weekend.
Oh.
Yeah,
Do they
yeah.
play there every?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Pony, it'll be Pony and Majors down there. Because that's field 1, and then 2 and 3 are at Watts Township. And they're all filled every weekend, all day. Now, if we did spring cleanup though, the impact would be minimum, you know what I'm saying? Like, if there was a game going on, it's just the idea of traffic would be flowing through all day with a bunch of
No,
little kids running
you
around.
can't do
No,
it
plus
there.
there would be no parking.
There'd be no park, it takes up the
No
whole,
It
parking.
takes up the whole parking lot.
we take up the whole parking lot with
But I was
trailers.
just trying to remember last year, I thought maybe there would still be a park.
You could
With
park
kids
maybe
running
a
around,
half
you don't
dozen
want
cars.
Okay, so, I guess the options are April 14th or have the committee come up with a May or June date. So what's the wishes from the table?
You cool with having it still in June? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, yeah, I
I don't
mean,
think it's a big deal if we have it later, get the word out like Lisa mentioned, you know, hey, this is the date, give people time versus rushing it and then.
The only concern you have in the May, June is the heat. It does get hot and it's trash. So, well, it's not so much trash, but it may just end up being, we'll have to see it. If at that day it gets really, really hot, maybe we shorten it for a day. Worry about the crew
Because
because,
in the morning versus
Yeah.
all afternoon, yeah.
because when it gets busy, Daryl's been down there. When it's busy,
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
it's hopping and hot and stinky.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
let's do that.
All right, anything else for infrastructure? Any other unfinished business?
so Chris had mentioned to me before the meeting, so the clearances, we're still, the clearances for junior council, haven't been able to move forward.
I already got, well, I went out and did it in a matter of 2 weeks to be a baseball coach and I already have all mine, so they can come to my committee.
Yeah, if you're doing it as an individual, it's pretty simple. The problem we have
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
exactly.
there's an account set up for the borough
Yep.
and we can't access it. And it won't let us set up a new account for the borough because it's already got an account with our FAIN. So
Right, I was just putting that,
So
his
everybody-
point, we can all do it ourselves and just get it done much quicker, and it's not a terrible thing to have.
Well, and I can't make the motion, but possibly the motion would be that everybody get their own clearances, and if it's their desire to seek reimbursement, they could do so. But that would need to be a motion from the table.
It wasn't very expensive.
It's like $10.
Yeah, it was
Does anybody have those links available readily that they can email them out to all of us?
Yeah, it's for,
I'd like to make the motion
Oh,
that
wait,
we
I'll
all
get
apply
everyone.
independently and have the ability to submit for reimbursement if so desired.
I'll second. Can we still try and get our account unlocked so that,
Absolutely.
at least that way we get them, so we can move forward with the program.
Yep.
And I know that there was a talk about getting some kind of fingerprinted FBI clearance, which you do not have to do. You can get an affidavit signed. I'm just saying this is what we did to get clearance to work with the kids. Get it signed and notarized down there that says, I can provide it for anybody who wants to look at it. So maybe that's another option, so we don't all have to go get fingerprinted.
Yeah, I had to do that to get it signed up as a volunteer
Yep.
at Susquehanna. You had to have said you'd been a resident for so many years, I forget what it said, but yes.
Bill, is that okay with you?
It's legal.
Oh.
You could set a higher standard if you wanted to. And you could require FBI clearance just as a matter of policy, but you're not required to.
Yeah, it seems a little extreme when you can do a state police and a child abuse background check and it covers, as long as you've been here long enough. Now, you have to be a resident of PA, which I think we all are.
how often do you need the FBI clearance?
Every 2 years.
Yeah, it's good for you.
I actually have to go for mine next week, so if
Mine's
anybody
like
wants
10
a
years
road
old,
trip.
so.
So I know Chris is done, so whenever anybody else gets done, if you could just let me know, so.
I can email you, I've scanned
Okay.
copies to it.
That way I can figure out that.
Okay, so the motion on the table is, there was a motion by Lisa Landis, seconded by Jeff Kirkhoff, to have each council member obtain their PSP, or Pennsylvania State Police and Child Welfare clearances, submit those to the office, and have the ability to seek reimbursement if the individual council member wishes to.
We already have
That
the
would-
state police ones. The state police are done. It's the child abuse part that we can't get into.
Okay,
Just real quick, child abuse one was free, by the way? There was no
only if
charge.
you're a volunteer.
Right, but if you are a volunteer, which is a very broad term than anything else, that same thing can be applied to your clearance here as an elected official, correct?
I think you have to have them
Because
separate.
that's how I'm a volunteer coach, and I'm gonna use that same,
It's the same form that you get back, and it's
Yeah,
not marked per organization.
that's what I was trying to.
No, it would probably be illegal for
Right,
you to use
okay.
it that way if you obtain
That's
it.
correct.
Yeah,
Understood.
part of the certification you say is that you're doing it for a volunteer thing, and
Right.
yeah, we're not, so. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other unfinished business?
So once upon a time, we approved the ordinance for chickens,
Yes,
but we have not approached the zoning piece of it.
as far as I know, it's because we were waiting to have, because the zoning hearing, knock out a bunch of zoning stuff all at once, instead of just having a bunch of different ones.
I'm just thinking as spring comes and people start thinking about this and we actually have not, we really haven't moved forward, we approved something that they still can't do.
Right.
On April 30th, Sledfest is the 28th, right?
Yeah.
On April 30th, there will probably be a dozen new chicken owners in this town, I think is part of the issue. Because that guy always comes to Sledfest, bringing his chicks.
Oh, yeah, the walk the chicken.
Which we can't have yet, new people can't have them because we're not zoned right yet.
Rent the chicken, they probably will not be there.
Well, yeah, until,
They're not gonna be there this year?
It was a different.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that, okay,
yeah,
sorry.
He's been there for the past couple of years, I've seen.
Well, there's a different
Same-
person
okay.
there earlier, that's Rent the Chicken.
Okay.
well, I'll know for sure if he's gonna be there, because all the borough
I need to get into
registers
business
are coming
for
to me,
something
I haven't
stupid.
seen him yet, so. Chris, you heard anything about the zoning stuff?
Sorry, me?
Yeah, last time we had talked about it, you,
It's your committee. It's
Okay.
in your committee that we need to start reviewing it and, what changes you want to make to it. I think at the end of last year, my understanding was you were waiting because of, with the changes in council and new people on the committee and so forth. And last month, there was not a meeting because of the kindergarten thing.
So, okay, so, and I don't know, what's the process? So it sounds to me like they've got some zoning things that they want to address. How does that roll through? Like, what has to happen?
Okay. It typically is produced by the planning commission, which you don't really have. So it needs to be a committee that comes up with the reviews your current zoning ordinance and see what amendments need to be done. I should prepare those amendments. That's relatively easy, and then there has to be a public hearing in order to adopt it, and then advertise and adopt it as an ordinance. There's a lengthy process. We're required to send it into county planning commission for review and their comments. It's just there's just a procedure. It starts out by somebody deciding this is what we think we need to do, putting it in a proposal form, bringing it back to council to proceed.
Then the zoning board gets it, correct?
Zoning
Well,
board-
planning commission, the zoning hearing board is kind of an appeals thing, okay?
Okay.
But planning commission advises council on these zoning and subdivision matters.
We do have a planning commission.
We do have a planning commission?
Yep, and we do have a zoning board commission, that's what I'm saying.
It might be appropriate, it's not necessary. The planning commission is going to have to review.
Right.
But a lot of times council will say, planning commission, please review and give us your recommendations on what needs to be done here, what you would recommend. In other words, you put your planning commission to work to come up with the amendments that's necessary. That's a thought. I mean,
Yeah, who is the planning commission?
They're on this
I was
list.
gonna say, you should have it, we actually have it yesterday, so.
That's the county.
And they are, since I worked with them.
Paul Liddick, Samantha
This person's
Bissonette,
fairly
Mark
new, so-
Lukens,
Okay, great.
and Matt Pfeiffer is the chair.
Okay, I'll start there then. I'll call.
it would be appropriate for, like, perhaps a motion from council requesting that planning commission advise council on what, take a look at this and advise. In other words, to have it in the minutes here that you've asked planning commission to do this.
Can we put a deadline on that?
You can do whatever you like.
What is our recourse if they don't?
Nothing.
Great.
Yeah, that's what I was curious,
So-
because, I mean, there's no guarantee that they're going to do this. And
That's correct.
Yeah.
Now, okay, alternatively, you can just have your council can do it. You're going to have to send it to planning commission for review.
Right, and I
Yeah,
think
but
that would
that's-
be,
and
I
that's
mean,
fine.
give me something to cut up rather than telling me to draft it myself.
So I
I'm
can
just
develop it.
telling you how a lot of
Yeah.
I can like
municipalities do it.
develop it, give it to them, say review it.
Yeah.
And if they don't.
Well,
Come to us first.
there's a formal procedure. In other words, that the amendment would have to, be prepared and done, go to them, then they would, there's a time periods and so forth that would be for that actual review. Now, if you want to do it like informally beforehand to get their input, that's fine too.
I'd like to make a motion that we request the planning commission give their input on upcoming zoning changes that may be needed no later than April 10th.
Second.
April 10th?
Yeah, before.
Hold on. So, motion by Mr. Crossheimer, second by Mr. Adams to enlist the planning commission to provide input on upcoming zoning changes to no later than April the 10th discussion.
I'd like to have them, I like that date because I'd like to have it at least before the next council meeting, anything that comes from them, because, I mean, this is, the ordinance is passed, and we have to take care
I
of it
mean,
now.
I'll devil's advocate. that's like 3 weeks away.
Yeah, we couldn't do a cleanup in that
They-
amount of
they
time.
have-
We're supposed to
Yeah,
fix
but
the
I
zoning.
can call these three directly.
I know, but they have, think about it, they have no reference point.
Right.
I don't
They-
either. I don't know what.
Well,
the
what I mean
reference-
is, you at least know the chicken ordinance.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
even know what we're talking about.
I can provide it for them.
So they would have to read, understand. I just feel like, I mean, it's not, they're not gonna, if they don't get back, that's fine. I just think the best, having one of them come to your meeting might be the best way to get something started.
Pretty sure one of them already did come to a lot of the meetings.
Yeah.
I would like to amend my motion to request that the planning commission also send a representative to the revitalization committee meeting on the same evening.
Are you good with that amendment, Mr. Adams?
Yeah.
So amendment to the motion is that we request the planning commission send a representative to the April 10th revitalization committee meeting. That motion, or that amendment is seconded by Mr. Adams. Further discussion.
Is there anything that anybody can provide me on record right now that shows what needs to be changed and why it needs to be changed?
Mr. Corey, didn't you have at one time a kind of list of things that you were kind of thinking that might be?
Just a couple of things. I thought the process was going to be the revitalization committee was going to review the zoning ordinance and, work through it in committee and come up with changes. I know a couple of areas that I think we should look at, but I haven't, reviewed every area of that stuff that's come up as people have had, zoning applications and in reviewing them and finding, when I'm researching things in the zoning law and noticing things that ought to be fixed. The signs are the big thing. Your off-street parking requirements in the downtown, which are pretty much not, they can't be met for most of the buildings downtown. There's just not adequate parking, a lot of places available to them. So I think that's something you want to look at. Obviously the chickens, but, I'm not sure what else.
Who came up with the zoning stuff that's on there right now? Was that borough authorized stuff? I'm
The
just trying
current
to-
zoning?
Yeah, because like the off-street parking seems like it would have never made sense down there. I'm just trying to think of why somebody would have.
That's pretty typical in zoning ordinances, but I wasn't here when they adopted it. I couldn't tell you what, what the discussion was at the
That's what I
time.
was asking, like the current zoning that we have, has it been reviewed in recent time? Or is this gonna be a rabbit hole that we go down and realize that we have to redo our entire zoning?
Yep, there's that chance. I mean, I put the likelihood higher that there's gonna be a lot of changes needed.
Right.
Um,
Because if that's the case, then a committee shouldn't take on the entire zoning reorganization and stuff, because, the planning commission should do it. Even though they're inactive and might not know anything about it, well, they're listed as that, so.
Well, and there may be a benefit to you guys drafting the piece that you want changed on the chickens and sending that to them with the encouragement that prompt them to review the rest of the zoning
Sure, yeah.
and see if there's other changes. But I think around the chicken piece, that piece is going to need to come from committee.
The chicken nugget.
I think you'll find that at least two members of that committee are already very well versed on how the chicken ordinance and zoning laws interact with each other.
And I understand that, but my
And I think that's
I think at least,
why
I
that
was gonna say, at least one of them would.
Yeah, that's why that 3-week request, while it may sound unreasonable to the rest of us, I think is pretty reasonable, because you're looking at least half of that committee already has some skin in that game.
Yeah, they have a
So-
lot to contribute to the ordinance, so.
So you're gonna ask them
And Mark likes the
themselves.
cluster.
Oh, really?
How does one get to be on the planning commission? How did they?
Do you wanna be on the planning
commission?
They're appointed from council,
We appoint them. I thought that only had 3 people.
That was only three.
3 and a chair, which means
Yeah.
it's even.
It was,
Means you can't
before it
break
was
five.
3 and Lynn. She was also on it. That's why you may have only thought there were 3.
Okay.
Well,
Is
there
the
should be
zoning
3.
off-
One of those is probably an alternate, because you typically have an odd number on the board so that you don't have tie votes. You don't have
Well-
anybody to break a tie if you have 4.
The zoning, what's the title? Zoning,
It's planning.
Planning commission?
no.
You're thinking of the zoning hearing board.
Okay, you're right, I am.
That only has 2 members.
It actually has 3. That was on my list here to
Oh,
bring up to
okay.
Kathy tonight. Bob Finnan is actually on that committee too.
We do, I remember that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the planning commission. So, Chris, are there any of your appointed roles that would serve on that committee in some way?
As a zoning officer, yes. Not on the committee, but advisory.
So that was why Lynn was on it, you're saying?
I would assume, I just know she was
Okay.
on it.
Okay. So, to find out who the real members are of the planning commission would involve researching the minutes.
Got a list? I don't know.
Well, but they're saying that they think one that may be an alternate. So
It
do
would
we
be
have?
unusual for a planning commission.
Okay. So we
Normal
have
for a
one.
zoning hearing board, but
Maybe it was 5 and there's one empty, or maybe there was 4, I don't know.
Should be
We'd have to
odd.
research it.
Okay. So, there is a motion that has been amended that's on the table. Is there any further discussion to that motion? Okay, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yay.
Motion carries with 1 dissension. Okay, so. The planning commission piece and finding out if there's a 5th member would involve some research on the part of the secretary. So if you can look into that and see if there's another person that should be being included, or if there's a vacancy, because we should be working as a council to fill that vacancy if one does exist. So, Roger, you're saying on the zoning hearing board, Bob Finnan should also be on there,
Yeah.
and those are the 3 members that there's not a vacancy.
There's no vacancy.
Okay.
just as an aside, if I may, council member may serve on planning commission. Yes, not on zoning hearing board,
Right,
but on planning commission they may.
right.
So that might be a tie-in if,
Mhm.
I know. Well, I can't do that.
Well, if there's a need for a 5th member, I will volunteer Chris Adams for that one.
Just as a point of discussion, there was an individual that indicated a willingness to do that.
Oh, shit. Cool.
So, there's a motion by Mr. Kirkhoff to volunteer Chris Adams into membership on the planning commission. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
I find out if we need it. If we do, we do.
People are killing me.
We have-
Okay, so Jeff Kirkhoff, Mr. Kirkhoff has made a
Withdrawal.
motion, to
I don't know what
appoint.
it all entails, so I don't like being volunteered for something
Hold on.
for a research. I thought we were discussing.
No, I'm trying to restate the motion.
Jeff withdrew his.
I would
We
do
didn't
that.
get this brief.
It might
Just
be.
didn't withdraw it because I did. Too bad. Mr. Kirkhoff made the motion, Mr. Cawthorn will second. Mr. Kirkhoff withdrew the motion. Mr. Cawthorn agreed with that action. Back to where we weren't. So, is there any desire for action from council on a possible 5th position on the planning commission?
Why don't we go through first and find out if there is, how many is actually there and who is actually on it?
Yeah, why don't
We asked the secretary to look that up, so let her go through her steps and see what she can come back to us with.
Okay,
I know it prolongs the process, but
so we'll go to the 4 that we've got, give them their marching orders,
yeah.
and see what happens and comes back to your committee.
I'll see if I can get them to show up to the next committee meeting at a minimum. I'll try and get them to look at get some input. Give me something on paper, you know, that says what they think their advice is.
Okay.
By
Awesome.
over.
Please, Lord. Any other unfinished business?
Chris, any update to Michael's email that you know of?
Michael's.
Oh, Mike, they
He's,
can't get
Michael,
the
he still can't get into his email.
No, neither one of the passports work.
So I had asked you to come in on a Friday to meet with him, so that he
Yeah,
could help
I
get
sent you
sorted.
the new password. I reset it and sent you that at your
That's the
other
second
email.
one, and that has not worked.
Yeah, well, you said on Fridays you have off, that you could come in and meet with Chris, so if you could do that, that would take care of that situation.
This Friday I can't,
Whenever's good with you, make an appointment with Chris, that's not something that needs to come here. Any other unfinished business?
I have a perception that we probably need to have another executive session for personnel matters. However, if you wish to take public comment first, I would be amenable to that.
Are you anticipating a need for action?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so,
No.
okay, hold on. You guys are joking. So there's been a request for an executive session to discuss personnel matters. I will open up the floor for public comment. If there's any additional public comment from the floor, or from the audience, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm not sure if there will be action when we return. So that's up to you if you wait for that. So, any other public comment?
Well, actually, mine can be taken care of under new business. I don't even have to, I'm just asking council for something.
Okay. Ms. Monahan.
Is it about whatever you were just talking about, or is it anything in general from the meeting?
It can be anything in general from the meeting.
Will you email me when you know that everybody's clearances have come back, and that way Lizzie can make a decision and get going on deciding where she wants to go, because it's, it's 3 months in, getting ready to be 4 months in, and, kind of want to get the process going too. So will you just send me an email, and let me know too? Everything's good to go? Thank you. That's it.
Okay, so prior to the executive session, I'll open the floor to the table for new business. Mr. Williams.
I'd like to make a motion to advertise for operators for our water and sewer system.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Kirkhoff, to open up advertisements for the
operation of our wastewater plant and our water system.
wastewater treatment plant and water system. Discussion. So I guess my inquiry would be, how do you envision this moving forward as far as?
I look at it kind of similar to when we did it last time. It essentially would be the same thing, maybe with an extra operator added to guarantee 2 instead of 1, and see if we can find, I would hope Pessy would bid and see if we have other operators. We already have Pessy offered.
Yes, we have their quote for 2018 to review. We just have not brought that forth to council to renew. So we know what they're offering us for 2018. We were curious to see if there was any other firms out there that would offer the same deal for 2018 for maybe less money, which we hope, or the possibility of hiring our own operator to do those duties.
Bill, I'm feeling carts and horses here. Wouldn't we have some sort of spec sheet or something of what we want, what that role is?
Job
You're asking
description-wise,
for,
Well, it's not a job description because they're not an employee, they're
you're
a
asking for a
contractor.
proposal.
Yes.
Right, but don't we have to give them a little bit of information?
Tell
We
what
give
they're
them the
gonna do.
size of this, what we gave you guys. The size of the plant, what license you need, what grade of license you need to operate, and that's what they go by. The make of the plant, the size of the plant, and their license qualifications. That's basically all we did when we advertised for you, correct? Thank you.
So we advertised it 2 years ago. should be the same thing.
Yes.
Chris, did you have, I thought you had a comment.
No.
Oh, okay. My only Chris asked the question and I would request clarification. Did this come out of committee?
Came out of sewer more than utilities committee.
Yes.
We had a sewer plant meeting, we had our sewer authority meeting after the utilities meeting, so it was not in utilities committee at last one.
Okay, well then moving forward, I would request the same. I'm, as the chair of council, I don't appreciate motions coming before council that we didn't know were coming. Not that we're obviously operating, this is not an emergency situation. If this is something that the sewer authority has been discussing, it's something that should be advertised for public comment so that individuals can, make comment on it. I'll allow for additional discussion here at the table, and then we will open it for public comment from the floor. Any other discussion here? Public comment regarding the advertisement. Okay, hearing none. Go ahead.
Just to be clear, Roger, do you want that we advertise for another circuit rider first, or, I mean, I don't know how you would advertise it for your own operator?
When we advertised it, originally it was for we even interviewed our own private operators at the same time when we did the outside firms. So either or can come in and do that.
Okay.
To apply.
There should be probably then an ad from when they did it before?
There should be, yes.
For that.
2 years ago.
Yes. Yes.
Your basis for wanting a private, is that based off of benefit versus a firm? Because it advertises for both at the same time, like are you looking to compare, like benefit versus?
All right, this is nothing against Kevin and their company. We're satisfied with their company. I am put here by the people to get the most bang for the buck. If there is another firm out there that can do the same job for less money, and I still say I feel we can hire our own personnel to operate our systems for either equal money or less money, and that person is totally responsible to us. The person, if he is an employee of ours, he is responsible to us. They are in a sense, but it's not.
And while I don't disagree with that, adding an additional position to borough employment should be a consideration of the personnel committee.
Correct.
Because we need to look at, what about liability? I mean, we can put somebody into that position, we're then ultimately responsible for everything. With having an outside contractor, there is some protection to a certain extent. Ultimately, we're responsible, but there's some additional protection there from them having responsibility and liability in that process. So I think, it's kind of an apples and oranges thing. I think we want to make a comparison, and I would also, just like with the tractor, I would disagree that lower price is the only consideration either in something like this, because we just found a well we didn't know we had. I mean, our system is a little bit interesting. So I guess that's my concern, is coming from committee, coming from the sewer management, whoever, there has to be a plan, not just a general motion that nobody has a plan behind.
We just gave you one.
I think that's an argument you can have when you have the bids in front of you.
Well,
Until we know if there's other people interested, it's hard to even,
So you just want to advertise, that's all we're talking
yeah,
about?
my expectation, to be honest, is that it'll still be passive. But until we know if there's other firms, or that there is an individual, I think having an individual would be the best way to eventually have this maybe that doesn't happen now. But to have somebody that is 100% our plant and not, how many different things do you guys have going on for your company?
There's a dozen.
Yeah. Instead of having a company with a dozen, there's drawbacks of both and there's benefits of both. And unless we know that there's what the other companies are, I don't see. I get what you're saying, that it should go to personnel, but this isn't to me a personnel. That money is the same, whether it gets redirected to an employee or to an outside source, it's the same thing. Like, I don't think it should go to personnel first. I think that's matters that come once you have the bids. If we get a bid that is for an individual versus one for a company like Pessy, then that's when that comes into play. Like, what benefits do we have of having an individual? What liabilities do we have? And then what benefits does that offer? I think that's when that comes into play.
Well, one of the things I think is gonna come up if an individual applies is how much are you gonna pay me? I mean, is there
Of
an
course.
idea, like, if somebody would apply right
That'd
now?
be, I mean, that would be part of putting a
They
bid in.
submit-
We're
the
submitting
last
bids,
one
So
so
is-
you would expect them to say, this is
Yeah.
what I want as a
Yes,
salary?
yes. The last
We'll get it all
time
out
we
there.
did
Yeah.
it, they gave us their quote, what they needed
Right,
to
okay.
come here.
Just to be clear.
Yep.
Can I put you on the spot? Craig?
Sure.
Would it be common for an individual looking for employment to bid on a request like we're talking about putting out? In your experience with other municipalities?
Typically, if you're putting a bid in, I would say typically it's a contractor-based scenario. They would have their own insurance and things like that. There's plenty of one-man shows out there like that. I think that's the difference between a bid and an application for employment. So yes, I do think they're two different things. So.
Okay, could I, may I just
Absolutely.
went through this with Liverpool Borough. They have
Yes.
a water and sewer plant, and they more or less hire employees. They figured out what licenses were necessary, and then put it out as a position.
Mm-hmm.
Where then the people would apply and then say what, their salary requirements and so forth. So it was, that aspect of it was approached more as an employment. They weren't looking for a company or a firm, a little different, other doing the same job. So,
Can't we do both,
That's what I
advertise
was
a bid
thinking.
for a and also advertise it as a job?
That's what they did 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, they keep them two
Yeah.
separate things.
Do it as both and then see who applies.
Like, commit to the possibility of, hey, maybe we do get one guy, you know what I mean? But it's not guaranteed.
And whether they wanna make that bid structured as their employee or whether they make that bid structured as their independent contractor,
Right.
it's totally up to them.
Kinda keeps
But in
it-
order to compare apples to apples, the independent contractor, you have to ask for the same stuff. So the
Yeah,
same
right.
level of insurance and the same level
Yeah.
of, whatever you want, same level of manpower, duties is assigned, that type of thing needs to be clear.
And, yeah, as I recall, I don't have that advertisement in front of me, but I think that was all spelled out in the advertisement 2 years ago.
Chris, do you envision any problems in finding that stuff? Or you
I-
think,
Won't know until I look for it.
okay.
If we can't find it, I'll get back with Roger and figure out, what we need to do and how we need to advertise it.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
So I get that.
Handyman, maybe.
That's what I'm saying.
so,
Big word.
I'd like to add also, I mean, I'm very new to all this, but the thing I see is we have two contractors who already have a lot of plans in place. And they didn't just come up with these yesterday, they've been developed over periods of time. I understand the desire to want to save money to taxpayers. But sometimes I think in the long run, you stick with what you have. Because if that person has, if you've hired somebody to do something, they've put the effort and the time in to get things in place and a timetable, I think maybe there's just, I just think there's other ways of maybe saving money than doing that. If we had contractors that, were delaying things or didn't have timely presentations or had, what's the word? Citations for like errors, things, I forget the word you used. you know, like with the water and everything's been going okay, there's been no, you know, I don't remember the word you used, but that would be my thought, that, again, if we have two contractors that are doing what we've asked them to do, and they have plans to take everything to the next level, it would be my thought that we'd stay with them.
Just to be clear, the wastewater treatment plant and the water, they're the same operator, so it is PESI. It's one
Right.
contractor doing two functions,
Okay.
but yes. Okay, other discussion.
I think we can consider that value, though, when we review it. And we did 2 years ago, too, I don't know.
That's what I would say, that value's, that's gonna be considered in my opinion anyway, so.
Yeah, I think we just did that with the trash. You know, we got the bids and we reviewed them and we figured out what was the best thing for the borough. And, you know, where I think on the outside, we thought it looked like it made the most sense to contract it out. But when we really dove into it, we realized it was better kept the way it was. So, but by getting those bids, we wouldn't have necessarily known that.
And just to your point there, the idea of putting things out to bid every couple of years for a government agency is pretty common despite whatever the track record is, because we have to justify what we're giving money to, so you have to put forth the effort, I think, to see if there is a better option.
Any other discussion? Okay, is everybody clear on the motion? Okay, all those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other new business before we go into executive session? Okay, so 9:00 PM, we will take a break to go into executive session.
A motion and a second.
Oh, sorry.
Like a motion for the executive session.
Second.
Motion by Darrell Crothermall, second by Lisa Landis to go into executive session for personnel matters.
And there's the time.
Aye.
And I will turn this off.
Yeah, I know, I was like, got oven up there, it's freezing down here.
Oh, that's right, until Roger.
It feels good.
There was something
I
there.
thought there was a whiteboard there.
It was a whiteboard.
Wasn't that the infrastructure
Oh, it sure
whiteboard was there,
was.
right?
I think so.
I forgot about
We
that.
started towing
Back
cars
when we
out.
used to have.
It used to be full of stuff.
I'm sure they
The
have.
same stuff.
What was that?
It's just this old
It was
stuff.
never raised.
No, it was
Oh, it was just,
Year, it was
okay, okay.
static.
It was the same stuff that was there when I started working here.
Okay.
It had never been changed, except for one. There was one.
When I first came, they were all.
It was like once a year we'd ask about Wells Park. No one remembered, but it stayed on the board.
Okay, I'll reconvene the meeting at 10:14 PM.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Lisa Landis make a motion to adjourn. Chris Adams second. Discussion?